Being able to play the blues on the piano is a great skill because whatever your level is on the piano, you can get a lot of enjoyment and good musical challenge with improvisation through the practice of this simple 12-measure form. As a musical genre, the blues started in the late 19th century among African Americans. It incorporated many of the features found in early African American folk styles, the work songs and field hollers and spirituals and call and response patterns. The lyrics were usually related to sadness and hardship, and the 12-measure musical form that we will learn here coalesced in the early 20th century, certainly by the time of the earliest recordings in the 1920s. So to begin with, you should play the blues with only 3 chords, the 1, 4, and 5. And you can find these by writing out a major scale and identifying the triads on the 1st, 4th, and 5th degrees. So here they are in the key of C. The 1 chord is the C triad, C, E, G. The 4 chord is the F triad, F, A, C. And the 5 chord is the G triad, G, B, D. Now the form of the blues and the order that you play the chords is also important. You'll find some variations on this, but we'll keep it simple. The first section is 4 measures long. The 1 chord for 1 measure, followed by a 4 chord for 1 measure, and then back to the 1 chord for 2 measures. Think of the 1 chord as home, or home base. So this section is basically all about being home, the 1 chord, with a brief excursion to the 4 chord. The second section, also 4 measures long. It's a more significant excursion to the 4 chord for 2 measures, and then back home to the 1 chord for 2 measures. The last section, 4 measures long again, is even a more extreme excursion, this time to the 5 chord for 1 measure, then to the 4 chord for 1 measure, and finally back home to the 1 chord for 2 measures. Try playing the chords like this. The 1 chord in root position, the 4 chord in inversion, second inversion. Basically, we're rearranging the chord tones so that they're easier to play, and so that there's a note in common between the 1 chord and the 4 chord. That's the C pitch. In the left hand, use the fingers 5, 3, 1 for the C chord, and the fingers 5, 2, 1 for the F chord. Rearrange the notes of the 5 chord into second inversion as well, and use the same fingering as the F chord, 5, 2, 1. And the whole thing will be easy to play. Let's try it using all quarter notes. Next, for the right hand, we'll play the blues scale. The formula for the blues scale is 1, flat 3, 4, sharp 4, 5, flat 7, and back to 1. So in the key of C, you compare that to the major scale and get C, E flat, F, F sharp, G, B flat, and finish on C. Here's the fingering, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 1, 2, 3. You can think of it in 2 sections like this. And then backwards, 3, 2, 1, 4, 3, 2, 1. Let's try playing it with a triplet feel, like this. 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a. So now practice it by putting both hands together. Next, I think it's time to move to a more intermediate level with the blues here. So to do this, we're going to enhance the chords, the voicings. So instead of playing simple triads with the left hand, we'll play 3-note voicings that include ninths and 13ths. We'll also incorporate a kind of syncopated rhythm to play those chords. Let's give it a try. So for the C chord, put it in first inversion with the C on top. But don't play the C. Instead, play a D, a note above it, and a B flat, a note below it. In other words, a whole step above the C and a whole step below the C. That's a C ninth chord. That B flat is the 7th, that D is the 9th. It's a nice voicing. For the F chord, play that chord in root position, F, A, C, but take the top note C and raise it by a whole step. Play a D instead, and take that lowest note F and lower it by a whole step to E flat. So the E flat is the 7th, and the D is the 6th, also called the 13th. This is a nice 3-note voicing for an F 13th chord. And we'll do the same thing for the G triad. So play the G triad in root position, but raise the top note D by a whole step to E, and lower the bottom note G by a whole step to F. So the F is the 7th, and the E is the 13th, a 3-note G 13th voicing. Let's listen to all 3 chords. Next, let's play it in a little syncopated rhythm like this. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and... Let's try it. 3 and 4 and... And then we'll combine it with the blues scale. Now it might look a little tricky trying to combine that blues scale written with the triplets with a left-hand syncopation. But actually, because it's jazz inflection, that last note of the second triplet, we can line that right up with this 8th note here, and that'll make it pretty easy to play. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, the point of the blues is to try improvisation, and the easiest way to start to do this is by developing riffs. And riffs are short, little melodic and rhythmic patterns that you just repeat over and over again. It's good to start out your explorations with improvisation this way, because you're trying to make a statement. You're trying to make something that makes sense to the listener, and riffs are a great way to do that. So just come up with a little simple pattern using a few of the notes of the blues scale, and repeat it over and over again throughout the 12-measure pattern. You might hear that I make little alterations as I go along. Here's an example. And of course, you should come up with your own little patterns. Just whatever you come up with, keep it simple. You only need a few notes, and then repeat it over and over again throughout the pattern. So we're going to do this one more time, but we're going to make two changes. We're going to write a new riff, and then we're going to use chromatic inflection in the chords in the left hand. So for each of the voicings you play in the left hand, you play it, and then you play the same voicing a half step higher. This is a nice little method for getting some variety in the left hand. So keep going and enjoy your exploration with improvisation in the blues form.